Today I want to take a moment to actually go over one of the stretches that we most commonly see during a lot of our warm-ups, which is called the Samson Lunge stretch. We do this stretch so often, and I just want to touch base with you guys on exactly how this stretch or this lunge should actually feel, what exactly is supposed to be working, and whether or not you're doing it right, and then also just a lot of different variations of the Samson Lunge stretch, just to kind of get a little bit deeper understanding of what the stretch is about. So as we go into the Samson Lunge stretch, so basically it could be either knee on the ground or foot off the ground. One of the most common faults I see people do when they're starting this for the first time, and they see people do it, is that they push their hips forward. They think they have to push their hips forward, but what actually happens is that your lower back or your spine actually begins to compress. And actually, let's look at the drawing here on the board. So what happens is over here on the left, so if you push your hips forward, your spine actually gets curved in that lower back and it starts to compress, and that's actually kind of really bad for your back. What we're trying to work on is more of the hip flexor and getting that open. So what we want to aim towards is making sure that that spine is neutral and straight all the way from your upper chest all the way down through your pelvis, so that you're really getting most benefit of stretching out that hip flexor. So we definitely want the one here on the right to happen. So let's kind of jump back here and talk about how in the world to make sure that we don't push our hips too far forward. So if we're coming down to the Samson Lunge stretch, so a couple things you want to be sure about is your knee is stacked directly over your ankle, and then the weight is placed on your heel. You definitely don't want your knee to go too far in front, because that places a lot of unnecessary pressure on the knee and on the quad area. And not only that, but that's also going to propel you to kind of push forward just a little bit too far. So you want to make sure that that knee is stacked directly over the ankle. Now you can have your knee on the ground, or if you choose, you can actually come up on your toes and make sure that you press the backs of the knees and the thighs upwards when you do. So now to make sure that your hips and spine are straight, what I'd like you to do is thinking about taking your tailbone and tucking it underneath. So instead of pushing the pelvis or the hip bones right here, so these pointy little bones in our hips, so instead of pointing them down, what I want you to do is actually think about pulling them upwards towards your belly button and tucking that tailbone under. And you're also at the same time kind of squeezing this back glute as well, so this back butt, and that will help to make sure that your spine is straight all the way from the top of your chest through your lower back, and that it's not pressing too far forward. So tucking that tailbone and the hips underneath. Now the other thing we want to make sure we don't do in the Samson Lunge is turning our hips outwards to the side, which is really easy to do, and therefore we don't get that benefit of the hip flexor getting stretched. So what we want to do is make sure that those hips are squared off in the Samson Lunge. So, but to square off the hips, one of the things you can think about is taking your front heel and your knee and digging them in the ground and propelling them towards each other. And that's going to automatically set your hips square. So if you can see like my heel and then either your back knee or if you're on your toes, if you start digging them towards each other, just see how my hips just kind of naturally started to square off. That's the position that you want to be in. So any kind of mobility or stretch, you want to make sure that you're in proper alignment in order for that stretch to be the most effective, because otherwise it's not really going to get to those areas. And if you stretch yourself out of alignment, well, you're not going to be aligned when you jump into any of the other movements like squats and so forth. So again, you want to tuck the tailbone under, take those pointy bone parts of your hips, you want to pull them upwards towards your belly button, tailbone's tucked under, squeeze the back glute, and then drive that front heel and the back foot or that back knee digging in towards each other in the Samson Lunge stretch. Okay, and then keeping that in mind, so once you have that pelvis tucked in, tailbone turned under, and everything's all nice and neutral, then you can start to push your hips forward to get a little bit deeper into that stretch without compensating your lower back in that stretch. And then let's talk about a little bit about the arms and the reaching portion of this. So I want you to feel that you're reaching through your ribs and your chest, and I want you to feel that is raising up through the ceiling. So it's not about, again, getting a huge back bend, but you want to kind of lift yourself, lift your ribs away from your hip bones and feel your chest kind of reaching towards the ceiling. But at the same time, instead of shrugging your shoulders, I want you to bring your shoulder blades down, okay, but lift the chest up. So it's a little bit of a different sensation that you're going to feel, but you don't want to actually shrug too much. You want to keep those shoulder blades settled back. That'll help you keep push forward just a little bit more, but feel that your ribs and your chest are lifting up as you're doing so. So your shoulders are going to be rotated back a little bit more. And this is going to be your most effective Samson Lunge stretch. That's going to be properly aligned and everything else. So I know in warm-ups we only hold these for about 2 to 3 seconds, but if you can think of those like few points. So as you go into each stretch, tuck the tailbone under, drive the front foot and knees toward each other, reach the chest, shoulder blades down, and then switch. So again, for the 3 seconds, tuck the tailbone under, drive the front heel and knee toward each other, reach with the chest, shoulder blades back down, and then you're going to get the most benefit from that Samson Lunge stretch. So going just a little bit deeper into the stretch. So if you have the version where your back leg is, let's say, off the ground. So again, to really work that, you can think about pressing your hamstring and your knee up to the ceiling just a little bit more, and that's going to give you a little bit more stretch. Now it is going to tire out your legs a little bit more. This is more for strength. It's also really good actually for kind of warming up to get the legs nice and opened up. But the cue is to press the back knee and the hamstring up towards the ceiling if you're in the taller Samson Lunge stretch. And if you're doing a cool down, and you want to do the Samson stretch just for getting the psoas and the hip flexors stretched out, another addition that you can do also in the stretch is taking this back knee and seeing if you can grab the ankle. So you don't want to grab the foot because you don't want to put your foot into the flexion and have it be like an ankle mobility drill, which, I mean, you can, but it's more about grabbing the ankle and trying to pull that heel into the butt. Again, keeping that tailbone tucked under so that you don't push the hips forward and that spine doesn't get compressed at the lower back. So again, hip bones upwards, pressing that heel in. And this is also a really good kind of quad stretch that you can get along with your Samson Lunge. So take these notes into account next time you jump into the Samson Lunge stretch. Again, the area that you're really supposed to feel is kind of a nice deep stretch all the way out through the knee or the leg that's going to be back. And again, the most effective things: tuck the tailbone under, hip points turn upwards, squeeze the back glute, and making sure that you're digging in the front heel, back knee, or back foot towards each other in the ground. Reach through the chest and the ribs, but bring the shoulder blades back down, and that will give you, again, the most effective stretch.